Thank you for checking out the video. This is Let's Make Movies, the channel dedicated to sharing filmmaking tips and tricks to make your videos, movies, or whatever you're trying to make visually just a little bit better. This particular video is going to be about how I edited my last short film, Solve, or How to Break Everything. Basically, the premise behind that video, if you haven't seen it, it was a short film that I put together in order to make by myself and to get myself out of a creative rut. I'm going to go over today how to set up what software I used to edit Solve and what I use to edit professionally. If you have any questions or anything that I don't cover in this particular video, please leave it in the comments down below, and let's get started. I have studio monitors. These are Sennheiser's 598SRs, HDs. They're open ear headphones. They're monitors basically so that I can hear the outside world around me. Hopefully you are at the opening of DaVinci Resolve. I'm using DaVinci Resolve 16. My particular system is actually Ubuntu 18.04.4 long-term system. Basically, it's Linux. It is the stable version of Ubuntu, not the one that's updated all the time. I have 32 gigs of RAM. I have a Ryzen 2700X, and my graphics card is an RTX 2060. I have a 2 terabyte hard drive going on right now, and it's just a regular hard drive. I do have some SSDs. It's kind of just a temporary solution right now. All right, so Solve, or How to Break Everything, how I edited this video. All right, so this is my timeline for Solve, How to Break Everything. This probably doesn't look like your timeline, and I'll show you how to make this very quickly. Your timeline, if you just started or if you just downloaded DaVinci Resolve 16, probably looks a little bit more like this. Here at the bottom are all the panels that you can, and the different tools and sections of the production cycle and post-production cycle that you can do within DaVinci Resolve. This is the media panel. You can see here that I have different folders created that have different sections of content that I'm going to be using for this particular video. These two here are timelines. I have my A-roll, which is everything that I shot for this video. This is actually not footage for that. I have audio. This is my speaking part. This is the guitar that I recorded, and then titles that I made. So I honestly don't use the cut tab. This is a new tab. I haven't really experimented with it. I prefer just the edit tab. I know it a little bit better, but this is probably what your tab looks like. Probably not all the way, probably more like this. This is probably more what it looks like. So how I like to set up my DaVinci Resolve, I first like to have, and I like to see my audio levels. So up here in the right-hand corner is the mixer button. You hit that, and you can see all of the track lines. Sometimes if you have more than 3, there'll be a little slider down here that you can get more of your audio. I like to bring out my inspector. And if I need metadata, I'll toggle it on and off. But I like Inspector more than anything. I like my timeline here at the bottom to actually be across the whole way. So if you go up here to the left-hand corner where it looks like an upside-down television, maybe, click that. It makes this longer. I really think what it does is it halves this particular panel, and this just takes up the space left for it. Another thing that I like to do is here in this button, Timeline View Options. I like to have tabs because I use more than one timeline when I'm editing. And I like to see the first and last frame of every single clip. I like to see the waveform, and I like to push it to the middle, and so that's what these two buttons kind of do. I'll actually extend my waveform. That way I like to cut to the audio first. And so that's really what this allows me to do. And then visuals, maybe we'll extend, but I like to keep the visuals pretty small. It's easier to just kind of see and grab what clips I need. Also, I like to actually have a center viewing window. I actually get rid of that one and center it. Up here, you can mint and scale to fit. Scroll window, we'll zoom in and out. Middle click, we'll grab it around. So back to fit. So how I started out with Solve is I actually will create two timelines. One that I drop all my footage in, and the other one where I will piece together the actual project. And so this button in the corner creates, adds a new timeline. And so I'll actually close assembly there, and I'll open assembly on the bottom. I like my main project on the bottom. I like the reviewing project on top. Up here is actually just all my stock footage that I decided that I was going to use. I'm actually going to delete this. I'm going to show you my process for actually processing and beginning the edit of Solve. What I like to do is go to my audio folder. I'll pick the audio that I recorded with this lav mic that I have on right here. And so actually how I recorded this is I actually went to my room, I threw a blanket over me, I had myself laved up, and I just read from my scriptment. I am going to be building a studio with a sound booth kind of area, so hopefully I won't have to continue to use the blankets, but it was fun. Here's what this audio sounds like, raw, straight from the wave, straight from my lav mic.
It is a saying. It is a saying of old mystics, of old alchemists. Basically, they are the
So that's what it sounds like there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute these two layers, and this is what Solve. I'm going to actually close all of these audios, because this is how I started. I started just with this layer first, this audio, my dialogue, and there are actually two takes within this area. Here is what the final one sounded like.
Solve. Or how to break everything.
The original one.
Basically, they are the
See how it kind of sounds a little bit more kind of like compact. It doesn't sound as good or loud. So there are a few things that I like to do first when I'm designing my audio. So right from the get-go, I will right click and I will go down and I will normalize audio levels. It may not sound like a lot of difference to you if you're not listening with headphones, but there's a lot of noise just from like the battery and from all of this sort of stuff. Actually, let me make sure, yep, it's still recording. Another thing that I did, if I go over here and click on and we look in my inspection tool, I have boosted the volume all the way up to 7 decibels plus, to make it a little bit louder and sound a little bit better, more crisp.
There's two scientists, old wizard.
And after I normalized it, I basically listened to these two tracks over and over and over until I had one succinct, poetic read-through of what I was trying to say that sounded good, sounded like it was all just one take, and I kind of piecemealed it together. So that's why if you look here, there are just so many cuts kind of put together with each particular take. After I cut it and after I got a succinct kind of playthrough that I like, I put in room tone. So what I did is in here, I found a moment that was silent, like right here. Room tone, what that helps you do is fill out the sound and hide the cuts in the audio. That way you're not getting a quick layer, just like those sort of pops that you hear when somebody's audio isn't mastered completely properly. Another thing, a quick tip, is this audio is actually, if I move it actually from the first layer to the second layer and we listen to it,
is filled with so much noise.
It's actually only coming in through the left channel. And a good way to make sure that it's coming through both headphones or a surround sound system or something is to go to clip attributes, audio, mono, change it to stereo. That right channel is still going to be muted, so you want to change it to the embedded channel, which is just the left one.
But it never addresses the
Now it's in both. Another technique that I really like to do in between cuts is, let's go find a good example. Right here. Okay, so right here, I cut from one section to another, probably for dramatic effect.
And there are so many.
All right, so in fact, I added an effect to this particular audio source here. I'd add effects at the end, so I'll get into the effects a little bit sooner. But what I did here was added a 6-frame cross fade, basically. So it just kind of hides the cuts a little bit better. If you come here, all you have to do is right-click, add a 6 cross-frame fade. And basically it just makes the audio sound
A voice.
uncut, like it's one thing, especially if you can find a moment where it's just room tone on both sides. Another technique that I like to do is at the end of audio and the beginning of audio, I will actually fade out and do a quick fade out because I don't like an abrupt end. It always sounds like a pop. Same with if you start it, it just kind of sounds like a pop. See, hear that? It just pops in. See how it pops in? That fade out gets rid of that pop in. Well, it's supposed to. See how it gets rid of it? Gets rid of the pop in. After I have the room tone added, the dialogue that I want succinctly kind of put in order, I recorded my guitar. So the guitar just fills out a lot of that negative space. This guitar, I recorded myself with this lav mic, just kind of dangling it over. I had the blanket over me, not all the way, and I played guitar into my headboard, which is actually padded. So it sounds fairly good. I know what I could do better to improve it next time. But the first part is me just kind of picking through the notes one at a time. The other one is me strumming through all the notes. So if I isolate it, here's what it sounds like. And that's the exact same notes as this one. I am playing to what it is. I have written that song and I play that song as a practice song actually for almost a year now, if not more. And so I just needed to get it out of my system. I was kind of tired of playing that song. And I thought, you know what, if I use it in a video, I'll never play that song again because it's done. It's out of my life. It's completed. I have it faded out here because this part in the dialogue, I'm actually talking about being quiet.
To close the lid. Have you ever sat quietly?
So the audio and the music work together. So after the music was pretty much done, after the audio was put into the direction that it was at, I actually grabbed all my stock footage. I had downloaded this previously. I kind of had an idea of what I was going to put together and the images and the powerful images that I was looking for. This is how I assembled the video pretty much till the end. So I found moments just like this part right here. Just think this stuff here is what I recorded. This is the stock footage. So this top layer is actually a film grain, film burn. It's this layer. But if we look into my video properties, I have the composite set not to normal, but to add. And what add does is it makes all the black transparent, and that you can see the video underneath it. I used add and I actually brought down the transparency just to kind of not make it too overpowering. And the reason I did this is because this particular video of Albert Einstein, actually shot by Thomas Edison, is filmed in, if we go to the metadata, it is filmed in 320 by 240. And this video is rendered in 4K. And so I'm just trying to add elements to the very low res video so that it still looks fairly good, like I did something rather than just drop in a clip. Another thing that I did to this clip is I have 2 layers. This bottom layer is actually, if we go back to the inspector, this bottom layer is stretched and transparent. And so the reason I did that is because this top layer is add as well. That way you can see through the black bars. I don't like the black bars kind of just being black. The film burn kind of helps with it, but this really allowed this kind of ghostly border, especially when there's like people's faces. It almost looks like there is more to the frame. And it just helps kind of sell the kind of look that I was going for. So basically, I found moments talking about a scientist right here.
Scientists. A voice.
Right.
Who were the predecessors to scientists.
So I'm just finding lines and poetic meanings. That way I can add in all this footage that I found. Same with the stars. This is really where I wanted the poetic nature of the video to kind of really come through, talking about just being overwhelmed and stuff like that. I have the beer and the stars in the background, the electronics with the stars still moving. I have a slow zoom. If you look over here, you can see
the noise,
that the position of the
flow,
of the beer is moving to give some movement to a static image. I love movement. That's what I like to express myself with, moving images. So stillness kind of really bugs me in film because the world isn't still. After basically I'm done with all of the kind of stock footage that I'm using, I have a whole bunch of holes, right? So this isn't here, all of this footage isn't here, and this footage isn't here. So I'm listening to the audio and I'm trying to really think about what can I go and then collect for myself to add to this. And my project resolution is actually set to the resolution on my camera. That's why it's shot in 4K. I use the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K. I'm trying to keep it native resolution. That way I don't have any black bars. Everything's kind of upscaled, unfortunately, other than my footage. My footage is gonna look the best.
This is a short film.
This is called lens whacking, and it's when you take the lens and you don't actually fasten it onto the mount on your camera, but you just hold it up to it and you just bend it and you allow light to hit the sensor from the side. It kind of gives this kind of dreamy, really atmospheric look. After all my footage is edited together, which I like to cut on movement.
About philosophy.
So if I extended this white portion here actually covers the whole thing, and then I actually covered the lens with my hand and then reveal the book. So I'm actually holding the book, the camera is on my hand, and I like kind of pulled it away to kind of give it a kind of fade to black, but there isn't any fade to blacks here.
Philosophy and mysticism.
So try and do a quick, it's about to be opened. It's already open. So it's just little tricks that you can do to kind of hide the cuts in the editing and make it a little bit faster for internet video. I really tried to find imagery that was powerful. I love tarot cards and kind of magical religious symbols. So the Hermit is something that I love. I have this Dia de Muerte tarot card deck set. I'm not really into this sort of stuff. I just love images and love storytelling. And I feel like all of these images have a little story to tell. That's kind of why I chose that stuff. I actually shot this stuff during the day over here, and everything over here is actually at night at my desk. And so these shots here, see how there's a little bit of a shake to them?
Own you. You do not own what you love.
It's just on a tripod just like this. And I just tried to focus. I focused on my hand about where I was going to set my face. And then I just tried to match that level. And then if we go into the effects on this particular clip, I used camera shake, and I made it super small and dull. I tried to not make it too overpowering, just to kind of give that static shot a little bit more of a as if somebody's shooting with me kind of look. Same with this shot here. It looks like somebody's holding the camera.
They're physical things, the stuff that they want, the money, the power.
No one is holding the camera. It's all in the camera shake effects. And you can get all these effects here in DaVinci Resolve here with open effects. There's a whole bunch, just kind of, here's camera shake. After putting in and assembling kind of the pace of the images that I want, that's really when I go into and add all the effects. And actually at first I do the color correction. I'll get rid of this. And let me go find a shot and I'll do a quick color correction on how I like to color correct my footage. So I hate my face, so we're gonna just let's do this shot here. Probably right there's the moment I used. So let's back it up. So probably right here is where I will color correct to. So I go to the color panel. So this is an ungraded version of the footage. So what I like to do first is actually I stay on the color curves. I go over here and I use the scopes function here. I go and I really want to make everything kind of really stand out and be bright. So maybe somewhere right here. I will first use the waveform, and what I'm going to do, the technique for this color correction here in the beginning is just to get as much latitude that I possibly can. And so if you come over here to the color curves part, which is right next to it, hit Y, you'll just focus and you're actually going to move all R, G, and B at the same time. I'm going to grab the highlights here at the top, and I'm just going to extend them all the way almost to touching. I'm going to grab the bottom, and I'm going to take the blacks, the bottom, the shadows, and push it all the way almost to 0, almost all the way to that there. Another thing I like to do right away is take the saturation, and I'm just going to boost it probably all the way to like 80%, something like that. And make it look really, really vibrant. So from here, if your white balance is off, I won't do any automatic white balancing or anything like that. I'll go to the parade, and here shows you the spectrum, your reds, your greens, and your blues. What you want to do is you want to look for something that's white in your frame, which I can't really find. Probably this is the closest thing to white, but I know they're not white. But just manipulating little areas all together. So red's a little high, I'll bring down red just a tad. Blue's a little low, so I'm actually going to boost blues highlights right about there. I'll probably take this middle part of blue and bring it down as well. Actually, let's bring it a little bit lower, probably right there. It's probably the best spot, and this is what the thing looks like now. Here's looks like before and now. Before, now, before, now. See, now it looks a little bit more cinematic. You can kind of make out all the details and everything like that. And that's my process for color grading. After all that was done, I had these moments that were just left as this stuff here. At the beginning and at the end. I actually didn't have my titles set in just yet. For titles, you go up to the top, Effects Library, go to Titles, and I used just text. So text, you can't apply effects directly to titles like this. But if you look, especially here in Solve, if you look closely, I don't have it crisp like this title is. So here's this title, and then here's Solve. See how the edges are all faded and stuff? So what I had to do to get that effect to work, you can add, if you go to Toolbox, actually if you go to Effects, go to Adjustment Clip, put it over the title effects. Now you can apply effects to your title directly, but it will also apply the effects to the bottom layer as well. So what I did to get around this and leave the bottom layers fine is I actually negated everything else and made it a black solid. I made the title a little transparent, and I came over to color, and what I did is I grabbed the still, and that's what these are here. You can right click and then you export, and then you export as a PNG. Put it in the file directory that you want it to go. Bring it back into the editor, go to where you are storing your footage, and here are those title cards. Static images. So if you look here, it's the static image, and then the film burn put above it. So the film burn actually has, let's make this fit, the film burn has lens reflections to add these blue kind of lens flares off of it, which is in the effects panel. And then, yep, that's all I have for that top layer. And then for this layer on the bottom, the picture layer, I have a slight zoom going to give movement.
How to break it.
I have a flicker, which is actually changing the opacity and the luminance in the picture. And then I actually have a little bit of a camera shake, which is giving a little bit of an up and down as if it's on a projector. And that's kind of the effect that I was looking for. I had to make it really, really small, turn that speed up, and kind of give it some motion blur. That way it wasn't so crisp. and then a radial blur. And that's how, and that's another lens kind of effect, right where you can find the lens reflections, that's where the radial blur is going to be as well. And if we look in here, the center is super in focus, the outside is not, and that's with the radial blur. It's a circular kind of, if we mess with it, it makes the whole thing kind of turn into like as if it's a circular kind of like out of focus lens kind of effect. Credits as well. I did my credits this way because one of my favorite quotes is by Werner Herzog, and he says, "You want to be a director? Go take the cheapest, the camera that you have, go shoot a 1-minute thing, put credits in it, put your name and director, and there you go. Now you're a film director." So Solve was the project that I used to break the ice and kind of get started. All right, now that the edit is pretty much done, the next thing that you want to do is show somebody. And then what you want to do is actually take notes of their reactions. Show your mom, show your friend, show your dog. But you want to show somebody because their reactions and the way that they're watching it will give you a pretty good idea of how the audience is going to react to it when it's out there. You've probably been sitting in front of the computer for a few hours and you don't notice your mistakes. You don't know where the video is kind of getting a little bit boring, because pretty much the whole thing is probably going to be boring to you at this point. Some of their stuff, they won't know really what they're talking about, but you know that there's going to be a problem there. It can be the audio, it could be the pacing, it could be the way that it's cut. I had to do a few changes when I showed my girlfriend, and she said, "Well, some of your audio, some of your lines are kind of delivered very quickly. Can you space them out?" And I was like, absolutely. And so that's why I have a lot of room tone. If you look on the second layer here, now it's time for the render. So in DaVinci Resolve, the render is the very last portion. What you want to do is you want to make sure either the entire timeline is set, or you can do right click in, right click out. And if you have like multiple footage or stuff that's left out here, that way you're not rendering like a whole bunch of blank space. So my render settings is actually made for Linux. Unfortunately, Linux doesn't have rights to use H.264. You can get it, but it's not free and open source. And Linux is a free and open source software operating system. I use the MPEG 4 codec. So we use MPEG, the type MPEG 4. I'll go down to the resolution, DCI. If you're on any other operating system, going to MP4 probably works perfectly fine. And in fact, it works on my computer every once in a while. I run into issues in audio. Make sure that it's selected to, if you're on Linux, linear PCM, you can get AAC, which is another audio codec, which is used for MP4, and that's why it doesn't work on my computer. But I have AAC installed, but it doesn't show up on, anyways, Linux problems, it doesn't matter. Make sure your file path is selected. So I actually changed my file path. I'm gonna have to reset my file path and solve how to break everything. Put in your name, send a render queue, and that's what all these for. And pretty much you're done. You can upload from there. I'll probably do a little bit video on tags, SEO, how to make sure that your videos can be found, and kind of my strategy for starting this YouTube channel and getting people to actually watch what I'm making. And it's really just about being part of the community. Create a community and contribute. Be genuine. Don't ask for people to watch your stuff. They will watch your stuff if you know your stuff. That's how I edited Solve. This is the second time that I've recorded this video. I hope that you learned something. This is fun. I'm gonna keep it going as long as I possibly can. My YouTube channel is growing slowly but surely. I'm getting views that I didn't think I would get right away. And it's just been a very positive experience. And I feel so fulfilled lately. I want to know from you what your favorite part of the production cycle is. Do you like writing? Do you like the on-set shooting, the lights, the microphones? Or do you like the post-production where you're editing and actually assembling your video? And so what is your favorite part of the video production and filmmaking process? That's basically all I have for today. Until next time, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.